Dr. Luisa Bravo, welcome to the Neuroarchitect.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for the invitation.
Please tell us about your career path, your studies, and what motivated you to concentrate on public spaces.
Well, actually, my degree is in architectural engineering, so I have a background in architecture, and so this was the start of my study and my research on public space. Then I was a PhD candidate and later on a post-PhD researcher working on the same topic, public space, for many, many years. And then in 2013, I established City Space Architecture, a non-profit organization based in Bologna, Italy. But with intention to explore, expand, understand public space at the international scale. So city space architecture works with many different institutions at the international level, including universities, private philanthropic institutions, municipalities, other non-profit organizations, but we also work with many individuals that are architects, urban designers, but also experts in the field of public space, since public space is a cross-disciplinary topic, so we are open to multidisciplinarity. But it's not just about experts. We always engage another kind of expertise, for example, which is, let's say, practice-based expertise. So we work with community leaders, with artists, with activists, since public space is something that belongs to everyone. So it's not something that it is just related to expert knowledge, but it is something that is related to the urban experience of every urban citizen in the world. So with city space architecture, we try to reach a large and very heterogeneous audience, intergenerational audience, especially young researchers, young professionals, young civic leaders, city leaders, to bring the message of public space. The idea is that we develop a new approach that is putting public space at the center stage, and that is helping us to design, transform, and adapt cities in a more human or humane way.
You mentioned many points here. So you mentioned the fact to have NGOs to work on this. You mentioned the fact of having interdisciplinary collaboration to have this result. You mentioned that it's international.
Yes.
So the concept of public space, at the same time, the fact of having like a cultural identity or a certain identity for the community using this space. Let's start by mentioning the general challenges you faced regarding this activity.
Well, at the very beginning, when I established the city space architecture in 2013, it was more kind of dream. So this ambition to actually establish an international community and having so many people being part of this international community. I have to clarify that City Space Architecture is a member-based organization. So when I say community, I mean the community of members affiliated to City Space Architecture. So it was a dream and ambition, as I said, because I mean, it's very difficult to predict a success of such an ambitious endeavor. But I was lucky enough, but also I want to highlight, I have been working really, really hard with a very strong commitment and motivation. So that many recognized the value of what I was willing to establish since the very beginning. So receiving support was key in order to implement, proper strategies for engagement. But also it was key to establish a very welcoming and comfortable environment where everyone feels welcome to participate, to exchange opinions, to also have, let's say, sometimes disagreements. Because that's exactly how public space works. The intention is not to just have a number of people that are on the same page. Well, in theory, we are trying to shape a common message. But when you invite so many people to join your community, you can expect that there are different opinions, different approaches, different perspectives. So the idea is to have an environment that is welcoming, meaning that we are open to listen, to learn, and to understand, because public space can be so diverse in terms of culture, in terms of identity, in terms also of use, appreciation, understanding. So if you are not open to such values, then it becomes very, very difficult to say, this is a community working on shared values and shared commitments. So I think this is still today one of the most relevant challenges that I am facing with all these different people that are part of the community or that are working with city space architecture in the development of our projects and initiatives. Then I have to highlight also that engaging so many people from different countries means that you need to travel to meet these people in person. I know that now everyone is online and we actually exchange a lot of our time, ideas, and opinion through online communication. But when I started in 2013, the situation was quite different. I was used to go online and to meet people online, but to actually pursue such an ambitious endeavor, I had to travel, and to go to certain people, especially at the very beginning, to explain them what I was trying to achieve. And this effort actually of traveling and reaching these people was the expression of my strong motivation. So people recognized, the motivation. And so then they were more willing to listen, to understand, and to support. And this is also something that I do still today. So not traveling so much as I was used to do in the past, but I still prefer to meet people in person. So I travel to them or I invite them to come to me and visit me in Bologna. So this, as you can imagine, it is a big effort. So it is not something that you can build by sending emails or having like online meetings. Yes, you can start like this because now we have many more possibilities compared to the past, but you have to show your motivation. You have to confront yourself with others to make a statement on what it is meaningful and important for you.
So what kind of maybe gap did you see in the public spaces that made you so motivated to talk about it? To take it as a case, as a mission to talk about it worldwide?
Well, I think probably it is my personality, my character. You know, I'm always very open to other people. And some friends say that I am a people person. So I always search for others. I always like the idea to be with others and to help others. And this is also very important because you have this, attitude which is spontaneous. It is not something that you think about. It is your spontaneous attitude of being open, of being smiling, of being, available. This is very important, being available anytime someone is asking, which also requires your time and commitment. But throughout my studies, the reason why I was into public space a lot is because when I was a child and also when I was in high school, before I moved to Bologna, I was living in a small city in the center of Italy, and I was living in a suburban development. So many people, when we talk about Italy, they think, Italy is such a beautiful country, such amazing public spaces. And so people could say, okay, but you are starting your work on public space because you are from Italy. Yes, because I'm from Italy, but also because I can see how much public space is underdeveloped, underdesigned, or even abused in suburban developments. So there is this postcard image of Italy that everyone knows or is longing to visit, but there is another Italy which is neglecting public space, that is neglecting social gatherings and opportunities for public life. And that's the place where I was used to live when I was a child. And before I actually started studying architecture engineering. So to make a change through my own understanding and practice. And even today, when I say this to people that are asking me the same question you are asking, it's very difficult to actually explain how deep the absence of public space influenced my understanding of the built environment. And in Italy, the majority of Italians lives in suburban developments. So very, very few are so lucky to experience the beauty and the enchantment of the historical centers. The majority of Italians live in suburban developments where public space is almost absent, and when it is present is, as I said, not completely designed, not well managed. And so there are two different identities of Italian cities. The one which is the extraordinary stage for public life, and the other one that is completely lacking that glimpse of enchantment that is offering you the historical city. So my idea was to study and understand why these two identities were built. Because in the history of civilization, because the historical centers are the results of centuries, you know, of overlapping civilizations. At some point, this was completely disrupted to design and build suburban developments in a way that is completely detached from the tradition. And so public space was left behind, right? So I wanted to understand why and how we can fix it, if we can.
Yes, especially now with this, maybe at some point in the 60s and beginning 70s, there was this movement of individualism that made the city of the, promoted a city of the car. So the movement through using cars, and put us a little bit on this idea of having this self-achievement. And with time, now with technology, also with pandemics, with all these problems, we are put inside and we are offered alternative interior solutions that make of the outer space of, let's say, the out of our shelter space, an image to look at, but not to use. So this, I believe, promotes the individual, let's say, or the personal maybe identity, but without any connection to a cultural identity. So what can we do to put back people into developing a personal identity in, let's say, in peace with a cultural identity and with a social identity? So to have this combination in building ourselves. What can we do for that?
Well, it's a great question, but still very difficult to answer. It's true that especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, we developed a different way to communicate with others that now it is common to use. But this created a kind of separation, as you were saying, between domestic life and public life. And so now people have established their own environment in a domestic space. And so occasions to experience public life are less attractive than in the past. It's a trend that it is, documented in many countries, in many cities. But I still believe that we should invest in public space opportunities because we don't want to support isolation or detachment for public life, since being in public space is also a way to exercise your rights and to exercise democracy. And democracy doesn't come without efforts. And so bringing people in the street and in public space and develop opportunities for citizen engagement is a way to create more cohesive societies. We see this at the political level. People are completely detached from political life, which is also a public life, and there is a progressive disengagement from political beliefs and political opinions because of a sense of helplessness in general, you know, that we feel as citizens. In Italy a lot, but I know also in many other countries across Europe and even beyond Europe. So public space is not just a nice, well-designed space. Public space is the space where we build our society and the way we live together. So the question that was also a question in a previous Venice Architecture Biennale some years ago was how we will live together. So one could question how, and someone else could question live together. So I'm currently working on living together because the effort is to actually foster exchange, foster debates, foster opportunities to talk and to listen and to learn from others. That is the most important part of my work when I talk about public space. So I do not apply a design perspective. Of course, we need to design better public spaces, but the idea is that public space is giving the opportunity for people to experience the possibility to meet. So you create relationships, you create opportunities to actually expand beyond your domestic environment, because otherwise we progressively will face isolation, and this is and this is not exactly what a prosperous society should do, because if we talk about future of cities, this is a topic that is very much discussed, you know, future of cities. In the future, we should have a more cohesive society through public space, through engagement, through exchange, even through disagreements and conflicts, but still willingness to actually be out and speak loud. That is very important, you know, having the freedom to speak, to express, and to be in the public realm. That's is extremely important to me.
So you said to be, meaning it goes beyond this public space, goes beyond the visual, goes beyond also the communication. It's about a total engagement of our senses that create a memory about the space. And for example, I will give a simple example that for me, an Italian public space gives me this memory of the tastiest pistachio ice cream. And this gives me a certain joy about the public space. I relate the shapes of the space with this ice cream that I tasted, and it was great, unforgettable, very simple thing, which like used my taste, the sense of taste, with the experience of the space, with the people that I met there. At the same time, to be also is to have an inclusive space. So not only to experience it through my senses, but also to feel that I can move in this space. I am welcomed. I belong. or I can adapt if I don't belong as my cultural maybe identity, which is different, but I can navigate through it. And it's facilitated for me like to move, especially for people who have invisible diseases, who have the physical mobility, limitation, who have vulnerabilities. How much, in your experience with these public spaces and your activities, do you see that the public spaces today give the opportunity for the sensory experience and for inclusiveness?
Well, inclusion is one of the key components of successful public spaces. And I always also refer to accessibility. So accessibility and inclusion is one of the main challenges. So accessibility means that you can reach public space and you can access public space. So that means that public space is well connected in also with several urban infrastructures, so that I am able to reach, public space, for example, in terms of mobility. And also it is related to universal accessibility, which means not purely people with disabilities, but also children, older persons, and women, which is also relevant in terms of inclusion. Inclusion means that we create conditions for vulnerable groups, fragile groups, to be included in the conversation. But in my opinion, it also means that we are open to diversity, which means also diversity of opinions. Or diversity of uses, because as I said, not every culture understands public space in the same way. And throughout my work, my studies, and my travelings, I have seen that actually public space is appropriated in different ways from different populations, from different cultures. It is this diversity that I believe creates the richness of public space. So instead of superimposing one way to understand, design, transform a public space, we should be open to multiplicity of ways, because this is a richness. This is something that also enrich my urban experience and my cultural experience from a very personal point of view, as you were saying. So when you come to Italy, I know everyone wants to eat ice cream, gelato, because this is such a nice memory then to think and to look back, because it is not just the environment itself, but it is also your personal engagement through your own feelings of appreciation, satisfaction, that creates that important moment that becomes a memory that lasts for many, many years. And this is exactly what it's good that you made this example, because this is exactly what I was referring to when I said at the beginning of the interview that we should design a more human or humane built environment. So an environment that is also able to foster this kind of let's say, full immersion in
Micro moments that are very
exactly.
significant.
Yes, that can deeply influence your way to understand, why this is a very successful public space. Maybe could be not because of the monumental architecture. Maybe it is not because there is a beautifully designed square, but because there is that specific situation, condition that makes you feel part of something, and that write a memory in your mind which lasts with you for many, many years. And so this
And
is
it makes the
exactly,
space particular. And it makes for me and for other
yes,
people this space particular. Like
exactly, that
for
makes
this.
you seeing and understanding the built environment around you in a different way. But
Do you
this
see?
is very difficult to achieve, right?
Exactly. It's difficult at the same time. There are many simple things that we have from our traditions that we can just implement by listening to people, by
Yes.
understanding their needs and what they see as a lack, and to put our expertise and our knowledge with the needs or what people see to create this blend, let's say this particular blend. Do you see that worldwide there is an effort that is put for public spaces, let's say by researchers, of course, but by decision makers?
Well, there is an effort worldwide on public space. There are many organizations that are working to, convince municipalities, first of all, municipalities, to implement citywide public space strategies. Even UN Habitat has established in 2012 the Global Public Space Program to actually develop a very strong and robust mission on public space. Also, it is very important to mention that public space is included in the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development with a specific target and indicator. And so the effort to include public space in the Agenda for Sustainable Development was very strong since, as you can imagine, this mobilized a lot of people, organizations, institutions, municipalities, governments, because if we now have a target, an indicator in the Agenda for Sustainable Development, it means that there was an understanding and an awareness that we need to work more on public space. So now we have that, but still the challenge is there. It is important to have like a very clear reference, but now we need to take action. So we need to implement public space policies, public space proper design, public space engagement, public space participation and exchange, public space debates. So it's really time for action. And this is crucial, because in 2030, we are supposed to explain what we have achieved from those targets and indicators that are included in the Sustainable Agenda. And I have this perception that we are still behind. Still, there is a lot that can be done for public space. In Italy, for example, because as I said, there is a great need to talk about public space, even in Italy. But also internationally at the European level, for example. The European Commission is now working on some policy recommendations for European member states in regard of public space. Because it is important that the municipalities are part of the conversation, because municipalities are in charge to implement and to deliver, to monitor, to manage, and to, in a way, also transform the understanding of people living in built environments. If you as a citizen leave this transformation of the built environment in favor of public space, then you understand that there is a shift from what was before, that was providing less opportunities, to something that is now available and that creates that that opportunity for you to be out, to develop a different outdoor public life, and creates that exchange that it is possible through, a very nice, well-designed sidewalk, a bicycle lane, or a bench with a tree where you can sit outdoor in the shadow, or a possibility to walk safe with your children or with your older parents, all these kind of things. When the environment is designed in a way that creates a condition for people to be part of this collective experience, which the city should offer, then this has an impact also on the way people understand, the opportunity the built environment is offering.
And on their health also, because especially now with the rising of the condition of loneliness worldwide, and we don't take loneliness that seriously, but since adolescence it can grow with us and it can create a lot of physical and mental problems, cardiovascular, related to your blood pressure, related to your performance, to your intellectual performance, related to your social communication and understanding of your way of communicating with others, of delivering your message. It can create, it can lead to suicide in some,
Yes.
in some situations. So it's really taken very seriously. And the role of architects, urban planners, people who are specialized in, designing the cities, have a responsibility to give this opportunity for people to socialize and to have an adequate public space to alleviate this kind of problems, maybe indirectly, but some people who are specialized in this, take this point seriously and design accordingly. Do you have in mind, or through your experience, any public space, a specific place where you find it of course not ideal, but near to an ideal or something that fascinates you? And do you have in mind also projects that are being discussed about reaching a public space that you find very good for, to give these conditions?
Well, I have to say that I'm now working on the transformation of a leftover green pocket space into a public garden in the neighborhood where I work. So I've been in this project for now more than 2 years, and it is still very challenging and very difficult to complete. So this is to answer to the question regarding a public space that I understand as something relevant to me. Since, I'm giving you some context. In Bologna, city space architecture has established the Public Space Museum, which is a space where we host those kind of activities I was mentioning. A meeting point, space for reflections, space for study and research on public space, since in our museum we also have a library entirely dedicated to public space. And we host researchers, practitioners, community leaders also for short residency programs. And we invite artists for exhibitions, for public talks. We present new books. And so there are many activities that are currently ongoing. The museum itself is the result of a regeneration process, since the space was previously a small neighborhood supermarket, and it is now transformed into a cultural space entirely dedicated to public space. So this is where I work, and in front of the museum, we are in a suburban neighborhood. So we are not in the city center of Bologna. Bologna is a beautiful city, a human-scale city with amazing public spaces. But in the neighborhood where we are, with the Public Space Museum, there is very little public space and very small opportunities for social interactions. So streets are full of cars, there is a lot of asphalt, very few green spots. So this is exactly the environment I would like to fix. So in front of the museum, there is this leftover pocket space, which was just a green spot, kind of abandoned, poorly maintained by the municipality, which is very common, in suburbs, to have all these little pocket spaces here and there, which can be a public space, but there is a lack of interest in implementing strategies or design activities to upgrade a leftover space into a public space. So I'm now doing this in collaboration with the municipality. We have an agreement, so a cooperation agreement, so that I mean city space architecture and the municipality, we both develop activities to not just redesigning the space, to make it appear more and perceived more like a public welcoming space, because we are upgrading the green infrastructure so that it's no longer a leftover space, but it is a garden. Even the language is very important. So it becomes a garden, and then our mission in this garden is to organize cultural, creative, and artistic events to engage local residents and citizens in general from the city of Bologna. We have been doing this, and you can imagine how difficult it is to develop a dialogue with the municipality, to think about how to redesign, to invite an artist and ask to activate the space through an art performance or an art practice. So at the moment, this is the most relevant space where I'm investing a lot of energies. And my question is, what if all these little pocket spaces that are kind of abandoned in so many cities and suburbs in many different countries can be transformed into a public space which is close to residential buildings, so that you invest in public space, but you also invest in urban proximity. You also invest in citizen engagement. You also invest in what you were referring to, opportunities for mental health, opportunities for, enjoying a moment of your life next to the place where you live. Because the idea is that we don't have to drive or walk far away to reach a public space. Public space is next to our homes, right? But we don't perceive it like this. So
Exactly.
from this suburb where I'm working with the Public Space Museum, to reach the main square in the city center, I have to walk 25 minutes, more or less, or I have to drive and then to drive around before I can find a parking spot. But what if the public space I'm looking for is right in front of where I am or where I live? I don't need to go to experience, the extraordinarity of the historical city. Yes, probably the green spot next to my place is not as the main square, of course, in the city center is, but still I can have, that moment, the one that you were referring to, in a suburban environment that is giving me the same relief that I'm looking for my mental health. And this is very important. It's not always big projects, big ambitions, but sometimes very tiny, but very well done projects that are changing the way people perceive the space around them. Because my intention is also to say, look, this was a public space even before it was transformed into a garden to welcome you. So this was a public space, but people don't have the ability to see public space, right?
But they need maybe professional intervention to see it as a public space. And I'm
Absolutely.
sure that most of the audience now was thinking that you will mention the name of a public space when I ask this question, and to say, oh, I went to this public space and it was one of the most amazing. But you gave an answer maybe that will emotionally move some people, because you mentioned the leftover, the simple left space that you put some human activation in it, like you invite people to move in it and to be together in it. And voila, this is your public space, people. It's just next to you. And we
Yes,
don't need big names to make a public
absolutely.
space.
And look, at the moment, this garden doesn't have a name because as a leftover, of course, didn't have a name, and even now doesn't have a name. But one day, a citizen that was walking in the neighborhood asked me if we could name that space. And so he told me about the story of a person that a very prominent person in the cultural life of Bologna, of course, in the past, because you always entitle spaces to personalities of the cultural sector and so on, history, and so we had this long conversation on the fact that that place deserved a name. And so now I'm thinking maybe I should follow up with this request if this project of this garden continues, because I'm currently discussing with the municipality. And so that this place will have a name. This is also very important because to be recognizable with a name means that you have really created a place.
We need a name to give existence to something, to
Absolutely.
give it like its own, you are here, like we do with humans, with objects.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any final words?
With city space architecture, we have been working really hard in the past 12 years. We have many different projects and initiatives that we have developed and that are now successfully supported also by international institutions. I would like to invite those who are interested to know more about public space to visit the website of the Journal of Public Space and of the Public Space Academy. So those are two key projects that, among many others, but these two are key projects that we are developing that are intended to expand knowledge and awareness on public space. They are both offering content in open access format. So we have created these two platforms as a public space. So open, free, and with the possibilities to interact and exchange with others. So they perform as public spaces. And then, of course, if you are interested to visit me in Bologna at the Public Space Museum, you are very welcome. Just send me an email and we can arrange a visit.
Thank you. And of course, the audience is welcome also to visit Bologna and to see the projects that will become named public spaces. So we will give existence to these spaces that actually have their importance, but we didn't give them this importance.
Yes.
We didn't make them, like put them into consideration before, but they had their value before. So this is also something very important in cities, is for people to give importance to the spaces that already have their importance, but we don't intervene enough in them.
Yes.
When it comes to the projects we were talking about, we will provide the link of the website for people to see. So thank you so much for this very interesting conversation.
Thank you, Maria.
And thank you for listening to us.